Welcome to the Asbestos Knowledge Empire.
What does asbestos management mean to you?
I used to really struggle with the asbestos management at my site, but now it's a breeze.
It used to be really expensive. I was paying loads, but now I've got my asbestos power team in place. It's so much easier.
Asbestos can be a pain in the arse if not handled right.
We had to stop the job because asbestos was discovered. Now we don't have that problem.
Asbestos management is easier than you think. Asbestos management. Be proactive, not reactive. Think about asbestos first, not last.
And now your hosts, best-selling authors and asbestos experts, Ian Stone and Neil Munro.
Welcome to the Asbestos Knowledge Empire. I'm Ian Stone.
And I'm Neil Munro.
So today we're going to talk about asbestos riddled boiler rooms.
Riddled.
We're talking kind of legacy issue boiler rooms where you've had previous asbestos insulation removed from pipes or wherever it was in the boiler room, but that was perhaps 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And the standards 20 years ago compared to nowadays were nowhere near where they needed to be.
Yeah. Let's take a minute to appreciate the word riddled. It's an industry thing, isn't it? When we're talking about buildings and situations that we've surveyed, it's always, what do you reckon that building is? I bet it's riddled.
Yeah.
Riddled with asbestos.
Something that looks like it's teeming with asbestos.
Yeah, dirty, horrible looking place. So yeah, the boiler rooms then, it is really a big, daily. It's a daily occurrence for us, isn't it? As a company who survey and inspect boiler rooms, generally what we're coming across is not so much fully insulated pipes, but it's more the debris, the insulation debris, the residues, the snots, as
Coining another industry term.
Yeah, snots on walls, which is just splashes basically of raw asbestos insulation.
Yeah, a lot of insulation, hard set and sectional and hand applied has been removed over the years. But the problem is that, like we say, kind of 20 years ago plus, the standards of removal were nowhere near where they needed to be. They would remove the physical insulation on the pipes to a point.
Yeah.
However, what our surveyors tend to find, there's residue still left all over the walls, pipe brackets, around the flanges on the pipes, the nut heads, all of those kind of areas. And that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah, it's effectively not been cleaned properly.
No, exactly. It's kind of the easy part of the real big bits.
Ragging it off the pipes. And that is the term. It's, ragged off the pipes, but it hasn't
used to be, definitely.
It hasn't been cleaned satisfactorily and definitely nowhere near to the standard that we expect today.
So if you have got a boiler room like that, kind of what are your options with it?
Yeah, it's a funny one. If you're a duty holder, there's a lot to be planned in when you're deciding that you're going to deal with this issue within the boiler room, isn't there?
Definitely. And there are a lot of different ways that it can be tackled.
And there's a lot of costs on each site as well, isn't there?
Yes.
So costs from the actual physical removal and asbestos remediation works, and there's a cost for putting stuff back, and there's a cost for maybe if you've got to remove other items, is replacing those items as well, isn't it? So take the ideal situation to 100% fully guarantee there's no asbestos left in this boiler room.
Okay.
What do you think is the best solution?
Best solution for that, I would say, well, literally everything in that boiler room has got to come out. Literally everything. Everything off the walls, all the cables, all the pipe work, any ducting, any conduit, any brackets.
Yeah, fully everything, the boiler's out.
The boiler's out, literally absolutely
boxes,
everything out of the boiler room. The contractors can then clean and tackle those areas, and then also additionally at the end they can use a quill machine.
Yeah, it does need to be a surface that can be cleaned as well, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. All the paint's got to be removed because the asbestos residue maybe be under any of the painted surfaces, so everything has got to come out and it's got to come off, so you are back to a substrate, a surface that's stable, that you can see is clean and free from asbestos.
Yeah. One sort of caveat to that would be concrete, wouldn't it? Concrete with pitted surfaces that you can't actually physically get in to clean, and even quill. That would be...
That's still a difficult one.
That's still a difficult one, isn't it?
And also, slight little twist on what we're talking about, but if there was a sprayed asbestos ceiling in a boiler room and then the flooring was installed afterwards, it's highly likely that there's residue and debris that has fell down from the ceiling and has mixed with the concrete.
Yes.
So therefore, you've still got a concrete floor with possible asbestos fibre in.
Underneath.
So that is a difficulty. So it's still not an ideal solution, but that is kind of as near as...
Get you as far as possible.
Yeah, to be kind of asbestos free.
Yeah.
Next down on the list, what can we do?
Well, obviously, if you don't want to replace your boilers and your fuse boxes and your conduit and your cables and all that sort of stuff, it is possible to get near as damn it. You can still quill areas of the boiler room or plant room. However, you are going to have a caveat, as there may be asbestos insulation and debris or residues that may be trapped behind these elements that the contractor can't get in behind, because obviously you're not taking them out.
Yeah, and also on that, say for instance the fuse board, if that's being left in, the contractors can't quill right up to the edge of that fuse board. What they'll have to do, because essentially the quill machine is a blasting machine and it's helping to remove that kind of the paint and those residues, but without affecting the wall itself.
Yeah.
And the problem is that it is a blasting machine.
Yeah.
So
It blasts
therefore,
off the surface.
yeah, and therefore it does create damage. So what they would need to do is to box around any items that are to be kept in, and then once the main works have done, the boxing comes off the wall, and those areas around, like say the fuse boards or any panels that need to be left in, they'd need to be encapsulated.
Yeah, so you are going to have elements that technically they can be cleaned and left safe, but there is, again, still a risk that there may be still residues present within those areas.
Yeah, and I mean, you might want to do the kind of partial quill works if, for instance, you're having new equipment fitting in the boiler room, but you're not completely gutting the boiler room and having everything replaced, but you're having something new installed, so therefore you've now got clean sections of walls that the engineers can go in to install their new gear.
An example of that is plant rooms or boiler rooms where you have a new boilers, new electrical upgrade, however you're keeping the existing pipework. So the existing pipeworks remain in situ, because that's a big cost to replace all
Massive cost, absolutely
all the
massive.
pipework. And usually, 9 times out of 10 they're still okay and they're still in good nick. So it's just upgrading the efficiency of the actual boilers themselves and the electrical that needs doing. So that's a good example of why you probably wouldn't do it. There's a significant cost in replacing perfectly good pipework.
So next down on the list, what else could we do that's kind of...
The next one, I suppose, is making safe, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
This comes down to if, you do minimal works, you haven't got to replace or you haven't got to drill into the walls, etc.
No, the area just needs to be made safe.
Yeah, so it's the encapsulation route. Generally speaking, it's an encapsulant that's painted or sprayed onto the surfaces where the asbestos residue has been identified. And this is an elastomeric sealant. It's kind of a rubberised paint that's added to the surface, which gives it impact protection, and it sort of protects the asbestos in situ. That would be, you'd be painting definitely the walls, the ceilings, even floors possibly, if there's anything that's been identified to the floors. And they would be cleaned, but sometimes you do get surfaces which can't be cleaned, like it's pitted concrete or whatever. They will need to be encapsulated just to seal those uncleanable areas.
Exactly that. I mean, within that as well, there might be a case for cleaning down, like Neil said, the walls and the brackets and things like that, to manually scrape any of the large residues off to clean it, so that it's not just an actual issue of it's just been painted. It's it's been cleaned off the large portion, and then the rest of it's been sealed. So that's making it safe with an element of work in there as well.
Yeah, and then you probably want to consider labelling those areas as well as asbestos.
Definitely. Labelling doesn't have to be done.
No, it's not a legal requirement.
But it is kind of your last line of defence.
That's it. It's usually considered, it's all about managing it and controlling contractors and controlling people on site. And then labelling is definitely seen as the last line of defence in protecting people from disturbing those materials.
And the thing is with labelling, what we find with a lot of our clients is that they will have labelling carried out in plant rooms, plant areas, things like that, because people in the trade, they know about asbestos. It's not as much of an issue for them because they come across it in their day-to-day works, whereas kind of general public, you perhaps wouldn't want that. So if you've got a school, you perhaps wouldn't want asbestos labels in schools.
Entrance door.
No, exactly. I mean, we've spoken to schools before and they've said that the reason they don't label is because it was a school in not a particularly great area and the kids knew what was asbestos and they would kick it and damage it and break it on purpose, so that they knew, the guys in hazmat suits would have to come in and they'd get half a day off school. So,
Delightful kids.
Yeah, so that's kind of a big reason of not to do it. But like I say, the plant areas, I generally would suggest it as that last line of defence.
Yeah.
And then finally, what is the final option? Well, if you don't need to access the boiler room, or you can put that boiler room under a permit to work system, then you could literally lock the door.
Yeah.
And shut it. And therefore, if nobody needs access, well, you don't have to do anything. It's not going to cost you any. Well, say, it'll cost you a tenner to get a hasp and clasp and a padlock and put it on there to stop access into that room and that area.
Yeah, and that's effectively you manage in people being exposed to asbestos, is preventing that access. However, the big caveat is that practical. Can you actually do
Exactly that.
If it is a disused boiler room, happy days. You never need to go in there. However, if access is required, it's probably not going to be an option for you, because ideally, if you've got trades or whatever that need to go in and access to take readings or whatever, maintenance of the boilers, that's probably not an ideal situation for you.
The problem what we've found over the years with that option is that in one person's mind, it's not accessed because they don't use it. However, then you delve further into the conversation, you find, but they store their ladders in there.
Yeah.
Or they store equipment in there, something like that.
Or it might even be something as simple as the gas meter's in there. So
Yeah.
you've got to let the gas meter reader go in there, etc. So, yeah, okay, no one on site goes in, but when you've got that person coming once a year, they need access to that. And how are you going to prevent them from being exposed to asbestos by going in there?
So that's about it. That covers off asbestos in boiler rooms. If you do have any issues with asbestos in boiler rooms, or you want a second opinion or anything like that, you can contact me and Neil through Facebook, the Asbestos Knowledge Empire.
Yeah, it is. I know we've mentioned it on other podcasts before, but, you know, boiler rooms, getting the right specs, getting the right contractors on board, getting the right job completed in these areas is really, really sort of problematic for some of our clients. So, yeah, it's definitely what we specialise in assisting people with.
So good, thanks for listening. Remember, asbestos first, not last.